you would have now learned about the growth mindset and the ownership mindset, which are the first two concepts that we unpack inside of our mindset pillar. So you should be really clear now on how they can benefit you in terms of moving towards your strength and physique goals and what you can do on a day-to-day basis to pull yourself out of those mindsets that aren't necessarily going to support you. So the next layer that we have discovered inside of this mindset pillar is to understand your core values and understand why they are such an influential and integral component of you having successful results. So what we do know is that if you haven't very intentionally and specifically decided exactly how you would like to show up or figured out what's important to you or who's important to you, you'll unfortunately always fall victim to your external circumstances. So a really prime example of this is the current situation in the world being lockdowns and COVID, and just critically reflecting on the way that you have responded to this, whether or not you have put yourself in that cycle of, victim mindset and feeling sorry for yourself, or whether or not you've, really stepped up and decided exactly how you would like to behave, irrespective of what's going on outside you. So what we can see from this example is that whilst we can't always control what's going on outside of us and, what's happening to us, when we understand and live into our values, it allows us to develop a lot of clarity in terms of how we want to show up. We can become really intentional in the thoughts that we give power to, and we can have a lot of choice in terms of the behaviors that we choose to engage in. So it can be quite an empowering place to come from and to live into, and it makes these challenging circumstances a whole lot easier to navigate. So this is exactly why living into your values is a critical component of having really successful results long term. So before we go into unpacking exactly what your personal and individual values are, what exactly are core values in and of themselves? So values are principles or standards of behavior. Essentially, it's just judgment of what is important to you in life. So these values that we choose are going to be super individual, and mine are going to differ from yours, and yours will differ from the next person. So when we facilitate an expression of these values, we get a feeling of ease and purpose. Things feel like they come really naturally. We don't feel like we're, trying necessarily really hard, because we find ourselves in this place of alignment where, everything that we're doing is in alignment with that goal and that vision that we have for ourselves. So on the flip side, when we're failing to behave in alignment with that goal and that vision that we have for ourselves, we can come up against a lot of resistance and things can start to feel really hard. We might find ourselves in a shame cycle or with feelings of guilt and judgment. And essentially this comes back to the decisions and the behaviors that we're exhibiting and whether or not they're in alignment with who we would like to be. So you can see why it is so important for us to have this continuity from our values, our behaviors, and the goals that we want to move towards. So some of you guys might be thinking, what are examples of core values and how does this actually play into my strength, physique, performance-based goals? So we might value fitness as a top priority. So valuing something like improving my fitness or looking after my physical health and well-being, which means that all the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, we would like them to align with that value. So the same thing goes if we were to value something like persistence. So intentionally going out of our way to put ourselves in challenging circumstances that allow us to facilitate that and to live into that value and persevere when things get challenging, when we come up against obstacles, and actually relish that experience. Another one might be self-awareness. So to be super aware of the impact of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your actions, and how these might influence you on a day-to-day basis. So you can start to create a picture of how these things might actually influence the results that you would like to achieve. So it is important to recognize that your values might stay the same. You might have a few that stay the same on a long-term basis. They might also change on a frequent basis. So it is important for you to revisit this, we like on a 6-month basis at the minimum, just to make sure that, everything is looking as it should be and all the behaviors that you're exhibiting are in alignment with the things that are important to you. So revisiting these every 6 months or when you've had changes to your external life or your circumstances is really important. So once we're clear on what our core values are, we can then start to apply them to all areas of our life, including the goals that you guys are starting to work towards. So what we're going to do in the next article is take a deeper dive into understanding what your own personal values are and how to align them with your life and your goals.